So today I'm going to be doing a video response to the tag by Coyote Tarot, which is let me reintroduce myself. I've had a few new subscribers recently say hello and welcome to the channel, so I thought I'd do another reintroduction. Have you checked out this tag yet? And if so, what have been the most interesting things that you have learnt from your favourite tarot content creators? Comment below. So I actually first saw this tag by Shanna D from her channel Sincerely Shanna D, followed by Angel from Feeding My Soul 1212. I do recommend you go and watch both those videos because they have some really fascinating things to say about their tarot journey. And of course, do check out Coyote Tarot's original video as well. So back to my response. There are several sections to this video. I do have the original questions up on my computer screen, so I might be referring to that from time to time. This tag has been split up into groups of questions, starting with the basics. And the first question is, where are you from? I live in the UK and I live on the south coast of England, which is a beautiful part of the country. We have coastlines, we have the New Forest, and I feel very blessed to live somewhere that has such a diverse range of habitats for someone who loves nature to explore. Next up is, how did you get your name for your YouTube channel? So my YouTube channel is called Vaudeville Manor, and this has been an evolution of phases, if you like, of my life, and so I'm going to start with the present and then work it back to how I got the vaudeville part at least. So this channel doesn't have the name tarot in it, and that's simply because when I started it, it wasn't going to be a tarot channel, it was going to be more of an art channel. But I think I've explained this in the past, for me art and tarot really go hand in hand these days, and so and it was my artwork that got me into tarot. So Vaudeville Manor is the name that I use for my kind of artwork, and it's a whimsical world that has evolved since almost 10 years now, and it's like a portal out of the crazy that is this world and something a little bit more magical. It's where I escape to, and I've met a lot of interesting characters, including the Tremendous Tuxedo Circus, which are like the house circus. Vaudeville Manor is a big meandering place. It's an old kind of Gothic Victorian style building, with lots of different rooms, and there's a woodland that surrounds it, which is an ancient woodland where many natural beings, elemental creatures, goddesses, all of that great stuff. And the name has derived from my love of circus. So my partner and I used to run a circus club, and we used to practice circus skills. This was like back in my late 20s, early 30s. I still dabble from time to time, but it was a really big part of our lives for a good 5 or 6 years, maybe more. And that sort of filtered in to my artwork. Through that, we knew a lot of people in the sort of circus scene locally, and we used to go to circus festivals that were held elsewhere in the UK. And part of that was a couple of our friends were performing in a vaudeville night locally, which we went to, and it was the best night ever, and I had so much fun. That word and that experience really stuck with me. And prior to Vaudeville Manor, I had an Etsy shop called Vaudeville Hippie, where I was selling and making sets of poi. If you're not familiar with poi, it's a circus skill act. You may have seen people spinning fire on the beach, and these were the non-fire versions. And so it stemmed from that. I started creating my characters, and I didn't want to use the name Vaudeville Hippie, and I made a decision to set up a separate Etsy shop for that, but I wanted to sort of keep that same identity, I guess. And so I realised that these characters that I'd been creating and sort of needed a headquarters, if you like. And so Vaudeville Manor was born. It's culmination of kind of past hobbies and new hobbies and sort of this melting pot of I guess creativity. And I've explained this in a bit more detail in another video response I did, which was to Simon from the Hermit's Cave, which was my journey through decks. So I'll try and keep this bit quite short, but very quickly, Misty the Fortune Teller needed some tarot cards, and I looked into it, and of course Rider-Waite-Smith came up, and really from there I became quite fascinated with the world of tarot. So this was in about 2020, which is linked to the next question, which is how long have you been reading tarot? So I finished doing the designs at the end of 2019, and as we headed into 2020, that's when I started to look at the tarot, really just so I could pop some things up onto my Instagram, but so I knew a little bit about it before I was just putting them up kind of blindly. Interestingly, having watched this tag, a lot of people have said that 2020, obviously the time of COVID, was a time when they found tarot. And even though I found tarot in the same time period, it wasn't COVID that got me into tarot. It was just following this thread of curiosity from a art project that I'd started. And now here I am 5 years later, with a YouTube channel talking about tarot, because it's fascinated me that much and it's had such a positive impact on me, that I just want to share my experiences with it, in the hope that it will help other people as well. And so yeah, that answers the third question, which was how did I get into reading tarot? Do I read for other people? I don't typically. I mean, I've read for my partner a couple of times when he's just needed a bit of clarification, normally around a decision that he is grappling with, but I pretty much do it for myself, purely as self-reflection. My mind's quite chaotic. I just find that working with the cards just help to calm my mind a little bit, particularly if I'm feeling anxious about something. They really do help to make sense of a situation, and particularly if I've been overthinking something, and it just sort of brings me back down to earth. Let's talk about decks now, which is the second section. So do I use tarot and oracle decks? Yes, I use both. And I do use them together. Initially I didn't, and then I think I saw a video on YouTube when someone had shared their practice where they combine them, so I gave it a go, and it was a bit stop and start to begin with, and I didn't do it continuously. However, certainly the last year, I've definitely been working with both tarot and oracle, and I find that the readings are amplified and the messages are a lot more powerful when you combine the two, particularly if you get a reading that you're not sure really what it's telling you, and sometimes just picking an oracle card will help to sort of unlock that extra layer and that extra meaning. And I'm really glad that I use both tarot and oracle together. How many decks do I have? So my collection is really small, and the more videos I watch on TarotTube and the more of these video responses I watch, I realise that I have a tiny collection. So I have 12 tarot decks and 25 oracle decks. It's not to say that I don't want more decks, but I am, I guess, quite picky about the decks that I buy. I do have very, very long wish lists, and some of you may know that I've put a bit of a ban on myself getting any more decks at the moment, although I'm sure when my birthday comes up in September I will allow myself to get a few more decks. The reason I have a ban is because I'm working on my own tarot deck, and I do have a couple of unopened decks as rewards to finish each suit that I'm working on, and it just seems silly for me to be sort of buying extra decks in between, because it takes away the purpose of having that reward, I guess. Also, I want to give the decks that I have an opportunity for me to sort of bond and connect with them, and use them as much as I can. Where do I store my decks? So my decks predominantly live in this room here. This is a tiny room. This is my art space. It's like 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters. So they mostly live in here. Sometimes I'll take them downstairs and have them on a little table next to the sofa, so if I fancy it, I'll just pick up a deck and just look at the pictures, but I won't necessarily do a reading, but I'll just come off camera and show you where they live. So up until very recently, the bulk of my decks lived up on this shelf here, and I had sort of separated them out into various groups. They still sort of grouped. So this is kind of my celestial, sort of heavenly bodies, cosmic collection. Up here was my sort of whimsical fairy tale decks, although some of them have moved. The Forest of Enchantment tarot is in there, in that bag, and then I had all of my animal decks, and that one is here simply because it is too big to go anywhere else, but it also has animals and nature, so it sort of fits in with the animal theme. And then quite recently, to excuse the mess, I decided to repurpose this old CD shelf, which was full of art stuff, but I've condensed all the art stuff, and look how perfectly these oracle decks fit into this shelf. And so I have the Season of the Witch. Beltane is up on my altar space at the moment because I'm using that. The only thing about this way of doing it is I can't really group them probably how I'd like to, but it's just a nice way of storing them. And then this is something that's quite new. This is an altar space that I'm sort of evolving, and so the decks that I'm using this month are over in this space here. So what do I look for in a deck? I would say I'm very much drawn to nature-based decks, decks that have animals in them, witchy decks, anything to do with seasons, although as you saw on my kind of shelf tour, I'm more and more being drawn to the more kind of cosmic ones. I'm very much into Rebecca Campbell's decks and the artwork that accompanies that. I do have my eye on a couple of Danielle Noel decks at the moment, the Moonchild and the Starchild. Can't decide which one to get. That might be a birthday deck. But actually, let me know which is your favourite out of the two. It might help me to decide. So yeah, they're all very much nature based. In fact, I'm trying to think of one that hasn't got animals or nature. Probably the closest I can think of is the Star Spinner Tarot, which is one of the earlier decks that I got, but even that has kind of animals and things in it. So oh, actually no, the Light Seers and the Texture Tarot are probably the least nature-based decks that I have. They're more what I call sort of people-y decks, and of course the Rider-Waite-Smith, but yeah, all of the others very, very rooted in kind of nature or folklore or kind of whimsy. Another thing that draws me to the deck is of course the artwork. You know, being an artist myself, there are some decks that I know are not for me, but if the artwork is interesting or it's done in a style that catches my attention, that will definitely draw me into a deck. And you know, I've got artwork that has been painted. I've got a couple of digital collage style decks. I mean, initially I wasn't so keen on those, but I can see the benefit and the beauty of those as well. I do like sort of hand illustrations, and they are probably my probably my preference. It's normally the artwork that draws me in rather than the theme or the creator. And I think that probably answers the next question, is how would I describe my deck collection? I think if I was to pick one word, probably whimsical would that be the right word? Nature-based, I think, is probably the best way to describe my collection. And do I have a go-to deck? Up until recently, I probably would have said no, just because I feel like they all offer something different, which you will know if you have lots and lots of decks. Although I've been working with the Forest of Enchantments deck this month, and there is something very comforting about that deck. I feel very connected to trees, and I love being in woodlands and forests, and it's been wonderful to reconnect with this deck this month. And I'm thinking that probably now I've sort of bonded with it a little bit more, because I didn't use it for ages. I think that's probably going to be a go-to deck for me in the future. Do I rehome decks? I don't, and I think that's probably because I just don't have enough decks in my collection to need to rehome any at the moment. Would I rehome any in the future? Potentially, but I think that would be down to whether I really didn't bond with a deck. I only have a couple of decks which I don't feel like I have that strong connection with, and that's probably the Divine Animals deck by Stacey DeMarco, just because it's quite a challenging deck to use, and whenever I've used it I've kind of struggled with the sort of message that it's trying to give me. And the other deck that I struggle with a little bit is the Moonology Manifestation deck. I just don't get anything from the pictures, and the artwork is beautiful and it's visually very pleasing to look through, but I just don't feel, for me, that the pictures really represent kind of the meanings. But also I struggle to even use it intuitively, and I always have to look at the meanings. But whether I'd get rid of it, I don't think I would, just because the information in the book is really useful, and I think I have to accept that I would use the cards with the book just so I can use that deck. Now we're on to the my practice part of the video. So what does my practice look like daily? Sort of location, tools I use, when do I turn to the cards for answers? So I like the idea of doing a reading every day, and I try to, and I will go for like a week or a couple of weeks where I will do it religiously every day. And then often what happens is, so say a weekend or something and I get up a bit later, I will forget to do it, and then it means that it has a knock-on effect, and I might not read for about a week or so, and then I think, gosh, I haven't looked at the cards for a week, and then I get back into it, and then I start the process all over again. I typically read in the morning. This month I was going to try and do a morning reading and an evening reading. At the time of filming, we're in May 2025, and that was because I was inspired by Simon from the Hermit's Cave, and he was talking about his intentions for May, and he had a morning deck and an evening deck, and I thought I'm going to give that a go, but the reality is I just forget to do it in the evening. We end up having dinner quite late, and often watch something whilst eating, I'm ashamed to say, and then it's bedtime, and then I just forget. So morning is a much better time for me to do my readings. In terms of tools, I keep it really simple. I mean, I do keep the odd crystal with my deck, so I've got a selenite wand in this wooden tarot box here, and I've also got clear quartz crystals on my tarot shelves that I showed you. I don't do kind of sprays or typically burn stuff. That's more because my partner's really sensitive to smells, and if I went too crazy on scents and stuff, I don't think he'd appreciate it. Also, I have a cat, and you have to be quite careful with things that you sort of sense and stuff, because they're really sensitive, so I try and be mindful of that. And I think it's just when I started doing tarot, it's not really something that I did to begin with, so it's not a habit that I've really got into. And in terms of location, I think I might have mentioned this, I typically do it in here, or I will sometimes do it on the sofa. I've tried doing it at night in my bedroom, but often it just practically it doesn't really work. So yeah, up here I've got a little table, and then I've got my tarot cloth, and obviously this is my space, so it feels I feel like I can connect to the cards a little bit more, because this is my little kind of safe zone, as it were. In terms of what does a typical reading look like, I did share a video a couple of months ago about kind of what I do, and so I do keep it quite simple. I do a mini sort of grounding sort of visualization, and I will just sort of put my hand on the deck. I do close my eyes, and then I sort of visualize, and so like you can with crystals, so cleansing with a pure white light. So I imagine the deck kind of this white light glowing out of the cards, and try and sort of feel the energy of the cards, and then I will tap 3 times and imagine any negative energy coming out, normally in the form of grey smoke, and then I do a little acknowledgement that I have a pure intention for the reading, and maybe ask a question at that point. And then obviously thank the cards for the advice that they're going to give. I then do hand over hand shuffling and take a card that feels right, normally if there's a sort of energetic sensation. If there are any jumpers, I will take them as well. I don't typically do prediction style readings. It doesn't sit right with me, and I think that's something that Coyote Tarot mentioned. What I do is more for self-reflection, kind of checking in if there's something I need to pay attention to, and I quite often don't really ask questions. I normally will just ask the cards for a message or a theme, although I did try something the other day, which is what do I need to prioritize for the day, because I quite often have lots of things that I want to do but not enough time to do it, and so I'm trying to use the cards to maybe channel and focus my energy on one thing that I can at least achieve, and that was quite an interesting way of using the cards, and I think that's something that I probably need to do more of. When do I turn to the cards? So yeah, normally it's just daily checking in. Although I don't do predictions, if there's something that's making me anxious, then I might ask for not really a prediction, but what is the most likely outcome. Like, and I would never use the cards for like, oh, when am I going to get money, or when's this going to happen, because I'm not sure if the cards should really be used in that way. But if you disagree, then do comment below. And final section then, so this is all about YouTube and TarotTube. What is my favourite content to post? So in terms of the videos that I put out, I'm actually really enjoying doing the video responses. I think it's a wonderful way of connecting with other tarot content creators, particularly the small channels. I also really enjoy doing deck walkthroughs. I haven't done one for ages, but when I've done them, it's really helped me to focus on the particular deck that I'm looking at, and to really make me think, well, what is it about this deck that makes it so special? Why am I drawn to it? What can I learn from it? How can it help other people? And it's actually helped me learn more about the decks that I've reviewed. And it's also really helped me to understand some of the decks in my collection on a deeper level, just simply by kind of explaining it to somebody else. I also enjoy doing intention videos for the month because it helps me to focus on my own practice. So, and also I think it helps me become a bit more accountable, because if I've put it out there to say this is what I'm doing, I feel like it helps me stay on track with my tarot practice. I don't do roundup videos at the moment, and I've seen quite a few of those recently, but I think it's something that I would like to do in the future. But I've decided just for this year to focus on the beginning of the month, and then I think next year I'm going to start doing more roundup review of the month videos. In terms of what I like to watch, again, I really love watching the video responses and all the tag videos, because I'm learning so much about other people and their practices, and every time I watch a video I always learn something new, and I really am really appreciative of everybody that is adding to the conversation to do with tarot, and sort of, you know, putting all of these ideas and thoughts and reflections into one big pot, which is, I think, beneficial for us all. I do like to watch deck walkthroughs, and I do like watching roundup videos, and I also really like watching videos where people show when they talk about things that they've been trying out in their practice. So how did I come to create a YouTube channel? As I mentioned, this was going to be an art channel, but through my art I discovered tarot, and I did really want to connect with people and to help people, and I thought I was going to be doing that through sort of doing art-based things, but I realised quite early on that doing the videos that I started off doing, I wasn't really enjoying them, I wasn't really getting anything out of them, and I was a lot more focused on tarot at that point than I was my artwork. And I don't know, I just had this calling and this sort of nagging thing at the back of my mind, which was saying that I needed to be doing a tarot tube channel, and that's the direction that I needed to be going in. And I've never really had that sort of sense of this strong urge to do anything before, and I think at the time I was sort of looking into kind of listening to intuition, and I thought, you know what, I've got nothing to lose. So I took the plunge, and I think I did my first walkthrough, which was the Tarot of Pagan Cats deck, and I really enjoyed it, and I don't think that many people watched it, but it felt right. And so yeah, cut to, I don't know, a couple of years later, and here I am, and I'm really enjoying being part of this community. And another reason for this channel is it was a way to document the progress of my tarot deck, Tremendous Tuxedo Tarot. Now, I'd like to put this out, I don't know if I definitely will, because I've still got ages to go to finish it, but whilst I was sort of looking through sort of tarot related videos, I came across J. Edward Neal, who is from Shadow Arts Find. He has quite a successful Etsy shop, and he designs tarot decks. He did the Haunted Cat Tarot, and like many creators, it's been cloned by Temu and places, to the point where I think he got banned from Etsy, but because he'd documented his process here on YouTube, and he'd shown all the videos, and you know, he could quite rightfully claim that deck as his, it was one of the reasons that he got reinstated back on Etsy. Now, I'm not even expecting to get to that stage, but I think if you are creating a deck out there, and if you are serious about it, it might be worth considering to document your process, even if you're not comfortable talking on camera, if you just do like hands down or however you want to do it, which doesn't involve showing your face. I think this day and age, obviously with the rise of AI and you know, copyright is just going to go out the window, and yeah, I think if you want to sort of protect isn't the right word, but try and claim some ownership over your creative content, I think YouTube is probably a really good way to go. So it was, yeah, a double reason for doing this channel, but I'm finding actually the benefit of meeting new people and sharing this love of tarot is has been really a wonderful experience. Final question: knowing what I know now, would I do anything different with my YouTube channel? And you know what, I don't think I would, and the reason being is one thing I've learned from watching a lot of tarot tube videos, it's a safe space and people have the confidence to be themselves and to talk about the things that matter to them and how tarot has helped them to express who they are. And you know, like with anything, you have to go on a journey and you have to go on a process, and you've got to do the sort of, you've got to get through the pain barrier, haven't you? You've got to do those early cringy videos in order to grow and evolve and get videos where you're a lot more confident, maybe a lot more concise, maybe where you don't need to refilm stuff or do too much editing. And I think, yeah, I've just tried to not, I think in the early days I was really fussy, so maybe that's something I would do differently. Maybe I would have not agonized over the editing quite as much, but generally speaking, I'm quite happy with the way that this is going, and I'm learning a lot, and I'm enjoying it otherwise. And I think, you know, that's the thing, if you're not enjoying it, there's always going to be resistance there. But if you think, you know what, it's going to be a bit awkward, it doesn't matter, it's only YouTube. And actually some people might like the fact that you're a bit rough and ready, because it makes them feel less of a need to try and be perfect. And let's face it, a lot of social media does instill this idea that we've got to have the perfect this or that, and I think when people can be a bit more down to earth and, you know, come on here without loads of makeup or whatever it is, or without the perfect space, it just makes it more real. And yeah, I think Tarot Tube is a very authentic place, for the most part, and yeah, and it's just nice to be connecting with like-minded people. Thank you so much for joining me today and listening to my tarot journey and tarot practice. I hope that was interesting. If it was and you fancy giving it a cheeky like or putting some comment down below, I would really appreciate that, and I do read every single comment and respond to them. Also, if you enjoyed this video and fancy subscribing to my channel for future tarot, oracle or art related content, then that would be awesome. I'm Sally and this is my channel, Vaudeville Manor, House of Art and Tarot. Until the next video, here are a few more videos you can watch in the meantime. Bye bye.